Okay, y'all, welcome back. If you didn't see my last video where I just kind of did a quick update, I have been gone for about 9 months, literally, and that is because I have been pregnant. And this is my third pregnancy, but our first baby that my husband and I are going to have. And we are super excited. In this video, I just wanted to talk about some faith-based things that we did during this pregnancy. And so just to get the disclaimer quickly out of the way, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving any medical advice here. That is each person's personal journey and the things that they do medically. Everything that I'm going to talk about is like faith-based, what we did in our prayer life, what we did when it comes to our relationship with God and with Christ. So I just want to put that out there. If you're looking for medical advice, trust me, there are a plethora of videos on that topic. So go ahead and do a quick Google search or YouTube search, you'll find that. But if you want to know some more like actual faith-based ways that we dealt with our struggles and how we got to here today at 39 weeks pregnant, then keep watching. Okay, y'all, so just to get started, because I don't want this video to be too long, and you know I ramble. If you haven't seen my journey, or my husband and I's journey, I should say, basically I'm 30 years old, my husband is 37, and about 2 years ago, we decided that we wanted to have a baby. We always knew we wanted kids. We waited a little bit when we first got married, and we thought, okay, this is the time, and it was 2020 at that time. So we actually got pregnant within 3 months. It was great. And we were super excited. And then we go in for about our 12-week checkup and we find out that we actually experienced a miscarriage. And I do have a few videos on that. They're pretty raw about me actually experiencing it. I filmed it like a week later. I did a couple updates 3 months and then on my due date as well. So you can check that out. But it was really, really hard. That first miscarriage was just devastating to me, and it was one of the hardest things we've ever gone through. I had a D&C, and we waited. We actually put all trying for a baby on hold, and we just kind of healed ourselves. And then my husband and I started trying again in September. And in October, we got pregnant, which was another wonderful, wonderful success, but quickly turned very sad as we had a miscarriage at home. This one was fairly early on, about 5 weeks, and I knew that it was happening right as it started. And so that was equally as devastating, but in different ways, because it happened much sooner than the miscarriage did. But it was my second one. I had yet to have a successful pregnancy, and I was just completely defeated because I really thought, this is just never going to happen for me. I've had 2 in a row. How could I possibly have a child? I really was upset with my body. I was upset with God and just everything in life. My husband and I fought really, really awful because we just were both so devastated to have this happen 2 times in a row. So we did not start trying again until much later. But we knew that eventually we would start trying. It was always a goal of mine to start trying again. I remember after my first miscarriage, I said, Lord, if it takes me 6 or 7 or 8 or however many, I'm going to keep trying until I have a baby. And I stuck to that commitment no matter how hard it was. So I knew that eventually we would try again, but I took time off. I didn't immediately go back into it. So we lost the baby, the second baby in October. And we didn't really do anything for November or December. But then in January, my husband came to me and he said, whenever you want to start, you just let me know. He was really wonderful and very supportive in that. It was when I was ready, that's when we would start trying again. But he said, Lent is coming up and I just had this thought come to me. He's like, why don't we fast? And we specifically fast for a baby, for no more miscarriages. And so I thought, oh, wow, this is amazing. We could do this together. We could actually, talk to God together. And we've prayed our whole marriage together, but this was specifically a very detailed fast for the period of Lent that he wanted to do. And so I don't know why we were very strict. We actually decided, my husband came up with all of this. He comes to me and I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is really hard. But he decided that we were going to read through the whole New Testament in the period of Lent, which is actually fairly common. That's not that hard. But we were going to read together every day, pray together every day. But then the hard part was that we were actually going to eat an Old Testament style eating. And I mean, I'm fully embraced with Jesus and the fact that I don't have to do that. I know that. But I like to challenge myself and I like to always give up something for Lent. And so this was a really big moment for us because the eating was extremely restrictive. More so than what we thought it would be. We just thought, oh, we'll do Old Testament style eating. And then we quickly realized that there was a lot to it. And so we weren't perfect because it wasn't like this thing where it's like, if you're not perfect, you know, you're going to burn in hell. But we tried as best as we could to follow all the rules that we could. We did a lot of research on it. And so, yeah, for the entire period of Lent, we ate really strict and followed all of the food laws as best as we could. So I know you're probably thinking, okay, that's great. Like, what does that have to do with the baby? Well, so we decided that anytime you fast, really, you need to be fasting for a specific purpose. And so we picked 3 areas of our life that we wanted to fast about. The first was a financial aspect in our new home that we were wanting to move into, which we are now moved into. And so that was the first one. We prayed for the home that we are in. The second one was that we would have a baby, and that we would have a baby without ever knowing the name of miscarriage ever again. And then the third I'm going to keep private just because it's more personal for my husband and I, and more on his side. But we fasted and prayed for 3 things, and we prayed a prayer for them every single day, in the morning, in the evening, all day. It was constantly on our minds. We also were in the Word. I mentioned we read the entire New Testament. So every night, my husband and I would read a certain portion of the New Testament, divided up into the days of Lent, and pray together and follow these food laws. And it was honestly the most amazing time in our marriage. It was hard. It was really hard. My 30th birthday was actually during Lent. And I was so sad because, like normal Lacey would go out, she would get some cake. But I didn't. No, it was very, very strict. So we did it as best as we could, and we really came together, and it was an amazing time for us. And then the last thing, I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but one thing that we did do is we did follow what it says in the Bible about abstaining from sex for a short amount of time. So my husband and I did abstain from being intimate with one another during our fast. And so that was really important to us because it says in God's word that you shall abstain for a small amount of time for a purpose and then return to it. And so that was also part of our fast, and it was something that I think really mattered in our fertility journey. So then we fast forward, and the plan was after the fast was over that my husband and I were going to start trying again, that as soon as Lent was over and Easter happened, we would start trying. And so actually that's exactly what happened. But I was planning, so I don't know how to describe this, but I was planning on trying for my cycle that happened after Easter, because I'd already had my cycle right around the time of Easter. So I said, okay, well, April's out of the way. That's just not going to happen. That's already happened. Well, don't ever say never, because I thought, okay, we'll try to conceive in May. Everything will be fine from then on out. So Easter happens, and my husband and I resume eating regularly. We also resume intimate relations, things like that. And I want to say a week and a half later, maybe 2 weeks later, I start feeling weird, and I have heartburn, which I've had heartburn the first 2 pregnancies, and I thought that's really strange. I never have heartburn besides the 2 times I've been pregnant. And I just decided one day, I said, okay, I'm going to take a test because I think this is really odd. And I was pregnant. It was positive. It was a big fat positive. I was barely pregnant. I remember because I am high risk, they took me in for an ultrasound pretty quickly, and the lady couldn't even find the heartbeat because the baby was so new. I was very, very new pregnant. It just distinguished that you could possibly be pregnant. And so we actually had to come back a week later just to make sure the pregnancy was viable. When we came back, the baby had a heartbeat. We came back again around 10 weeks. The baby continued to have a heartbeat. And since then, the baby has been thriving and doing well at every single checkup. And I'm 39 weeks pregnant now, and the baby is due any day now. So one of my main takeaways, which is kind of not faith-based, but just so y'all know, you do not have to plan your cycle out to get pregnant. I thought my cycle was finished. I thought my cycle was done for the month of April and we were going to start in May, and that was a lie. So yes, science is great, but God is greater. So one of the things that really, really helped me in my faith journey was the prayer of Hannah, or Hannah's prayer. If you're unfamiliar, it's in 1 Samuel, and I believe it's the 1st and 2nd chapters. I read this prayer before every single doctor's appointment. I take some time in my car right before I walk in, and I read this prayer. It means the world to me. Hannah was a woman who struggled to conceive, and she struggled to have a baby. And she actually gave birth to Samuel, who would be a prophet. And so I resonated with her story. I resonated with the fact that she desperately wanted a child and she had experienced so much loss and pain. And so I dug deep into her prayer. I would read it before every single doctor's appointment. I still read it. I'm going to read it before I give birth. I read it at home constantly. It's not necessarily a prayer for fertility. I actually want to do a Bible study on this prayer because it's just an amazing prayer. But it speaks to God's power and how God plans everything, and everything is within His touch, within His grasp, and He knows everything, and everything is in His control, and we can just be calm and confident in Him. And I love that. And it's just about giving Him the control of it all. And so that's what I do. That's why I read it before every doctor's appointment, whether it's a good one or a bad one. I just give it all to Him. So I definitely love Hannah's prayer. I recommend it to every woman who's going through a fertility journey or a miscarriage journey or just a pregnancy journey in general. This is a woman who knows exactly what we are struggling with, and this is the prayer that she prayed. The second thing that I did was I only took in so much information. So after I went through all of my pregnancy, miscarriage, and really wanted to get pregnant again during the time of our fast, you can almost take in too much information. I was constantly Googling fertility, how to fix recurrent miscarriages, what to do to, get egg health be better, and am I too old, and all of these things. And science is wonderful. I believe in science completely, but I also believe that God wants us to put our trust in Him. And so there came a point where I sat back. I said, Lacey, you know the basis of all of this. Now it's time to let it go. So I did do research. There were a few things with my diet and my health that I changed. There were a few things with my doctor that I talked with and we tweaked. We didn't go on any fertility medicine, but there were a few things in my life day to day that we did change up. And so I had a very good idea of the graphs of fertility and how the science of it all worked. I had a good grasp of how I needed to be in good health for myself before we started trying to conceive again after our Lenten fast. But I also stopped because it can be it can be an idol in your life, wanting more information, thinking that if you have more of the science behind it, you can figure it out. I didn't give up gluten. I didn't give up dairy. I didn't give up, for my Lenten fast I did, but for like my pregnancy and for life in general, I didn't do these things. And I see a lot of women, they give up everything in their life. No gluten, no dairy. They give up wearing deodorant. I mean, to each his own, but there's just a lot of very extreme things that women will do. And I just had to come to the realization that God is in control of this, not me. I had a basic knowledge. I had a very good idea of how things worked and how to be healthy. But besides that, I let it all be in God's hands. And so I think that really helped me, was saying, God, give me this information that you have blessed this world with, but at the end of the day, it's in your hands. You are the decider. Your will be done. And I think that's so important to God, that we just allow Him to lead us and we don't try to control the situation. The last thing that I did that I think was really helpful for my journey through miscarriage and also with my pregnancy was putting my pride aside and just allowing God to be the ruler of all. And how this is different from my last knowledge point is kind of just about a personal journey. And I think us moms, us women really all have somewhere in our life where we feel very like on a pedestal with. So for me, for example, I always wanted a natural birth. That was like that was everything to me. And at any time I saw a mom, I said, "Oh, are you going to have a natural birth?" Well, that's what's best for the baby, because I had watched all these documentaries and I had read all these books about how great it was. And I really just put that up on a pedestal, and I knew, well, that's what I'm going to have. And so when I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, I quickly learned through my doctors that a natural birth was probably not on the table. And it was not on the table because of my gestational diabetes, because I had this complication. And so we were looking at a more than likely C-section, possible induction, going early because of the baby's size, possible insulin use, all of these things that were out of my control, that did not fit my perfect birth box. Like, I'm just going to have this perfect, marry in a stable birth, everything's going to be great box. And that was shocking to me. I had to mourn that. And I realized as I was in that mourning process that I was idolizing this perfect birth, that's just not how the world works. God tells us that that's not how the world works, and we should just trust his plan. And so I had to really say, you know what? I'm putting my birth story in God's hands. And I say that 39 weeks pregnant, I am scared. At this point, we aren't having a C-section because I didn't have to go on insulin, but the birth is still up in the air because of the gestational diabetes. I actually have an ultrasound tomorrow, and they're going to look at the baby's size and decide then kind of what we're going to do in the next week. But all of this is outside of my control, and I'm okay with that. And I didn't just become okay with it. I had to work with God, and he really had to show me that I have to trust the people who are caring for me. I have to trust my instincts. I have to trust myself and ask myself, am I being prideful, or am I humbly accepting the plan that God has for me? And in the case of this natural birth, I was being prideful because I wanted to make the video about my natural birth. And I wanted to tell all my friends about how I did it and they didn't. That's pride. That's not humbly loving the experience, because I've heard so many women have a beautiful natural birth experience. But if you're going at it so you can be prideful, that's not beautiful and that's not godly. So those are kind of the takeaways and my journey that we had throughout this pregnancy and our fertility journey. We are so thankful that we're getting ready to welcome our baby girl. She is not here yet, so we're not completely done with this battle. I still am continuing to pray. I would appreciate all the prayers. And I just want to thank y'all for being on this journey with me, those who know me personally and those who know me from now on. I just thank you so much. And I know that God is looking after us and he's just going to get us through. If you take anything from this video and you're on your own journey, I just want to say that it is so important that we just allow God to work. And I tell this to myself every single day. I'm no expert in it, but it really is true. It's all in God's timing. It's all in God's plan. And we have to trust him more than we trust ourselves. And sometimes that's really hard. And I understand completely, because it's really hard to not want to just influx yourself with information, influx yourself with these plans. But really, it's God's decision at the end of the day. So thanks y'all so much. I am going to be coming at you with a new series here soon. If you have any questions about my journey or anything that I wasn't clear about, just ask them down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.